We've now advanced to the closing of Module 5, Consequence Strategies to Decrease Behavior. Through this module, we worked through two different main parts. Part 1, we looked to describe consequence strategies to decrease behaviors. In Part 2, we identified a continuum of strategies to respond to inappropriate behaviors. We've discussed planned ignoring, differential reinforcement, response cost, timeout from reinforcement, and overcorrection procedures. As a review, we began this module by looking at these three key questions. Are the foundations of effective, positive, class-wide behavior supports in place? Are proactive and positive practices implemented consistently? And as a focus of this module, do data indicate that students are still engaging in challenging behaviors? If the answer is no, no challenging behaviors are still being exhibited, that is to be celebrated. Well done. Continue to monitor outcomes and adjust as needed. More likely, if the answer is yes, are those behaviors minor or major? If they're minor, we discussed brief specific error correction approaches and strategies to respond to those behaviors. If the behaviors are major in context, how many students are involved? If many students are exhibiting challenging major behaviors, you may want to revisit and self-reflect on the 5 evidence-based class-wide management structures that we've discussed through these modules and adjust accordingly. You may have a more challenging Tier 1 support structure needed. If only a few students are exhibiting major challenging behaviors, you might look to request additional Tier 2 or Tier 3 supports for those students. We'll be discussing how to intensify behavioral supports in Module 8. A few punishment reminders. First, punishment consequences should be used sparingly. Reinforcement-based strategies should always significantly outweigh your punishment responses. Secondly, consistency, not size, is important. This goes for all behavioral strategies. It is more important that you as the implementer and as the adult in the classroom, as well as your colleagues in that classroom, are consistently responding to students' minor and major behavioral challenges, as well as students' appropriate behaviors as they occur. Third, punishment consequences should be selected individually and, as the theme of this module, functionally tied to the student's challenging behavior. Be sure the punisher functions to decrease the future likelihood of the student's challenging behavior. And finally, logical consequences are often more effective when implemented in the classroom. At this point, we'll ask you to turn back to your workbooks for Activity 5.7, which is a discussion board post. Here we're going to look to reflect and refine your punishment systems. You can post your responses to the following questions. First, what will you do when you find you are using punishment procedures too frequently? As a guiding light, you should always look to have at least 4 to 1 positive to negative interactions with your students. So what will you do if that ratio is not currently realized? Secondly, how will you ensure you use the least intrusive procedure that is still effective with your students? In other words, how can you check yourself and your punishment-based strategies across time? Thirdly, how will you ensure your system is as instructional and consistent as possible? I would also look to extend that question. How can you ensure that your approach is as instructional and consistent across implementers as well? Welcome back. This is a review to Activity 5.7. Remember, when developing your punishment system, focus on selecting a consequence strategy that matches the function of the student's behavior, and always make sure you are relying primarily on antecedent strategies to set your students up for success. At this point, you have wrapped up Module 5. You can look now to take Module 5 quiz, as well as the classroom application activity. See you in Module 6.